In case nobody's ever said this to you before, creativity is dangerous. It's really dangerous. And that's exactly why you should be doing it. That's why I'm doing it. That's why we should all be doing it. That's why it's so important. That's why it's so powerful. And usually, when you hear people say that something is dangerous, it means that you shouldn't be doing it. I'm going to tell you what I mean in a second about why I think creativity is dangerous. But first, I'm going to say it's Sam from thesamanthawild.com. And don't forget, while you're here, give the thumbs up, hit the notification bell, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Thank you so much to all my new subscribers. Mwah. I love you so much. And I'm here in the studio by myself, looking like this, just taught a yoga class, because I want to show up as my AI protest, totally real. So I'm making these live, even though nobody's here, and I'm not announcing it ahead of time, and I don't have 100 million followers, because I want to do live things as opposed to the kind that you record and then edit, because it feels really important to me in the world, the way that it is now, that part of my sharing of my creativity and my teaching is that I'm, as much as possible, being as real as I can in a world with a lot of artifice. Because part of what creativity brings to us is that realness. And I was just saying this the other day to my husband, the buzzword is like authenticity. I don't think authenticity is a good enough word. I think it's really about being real. Remember the story of the Velveteen Rabbit who gets loved into realness? Well, that's really what we want to do. We want to love each other into realness. So this is how I'm showing up. I'm working on the loom. I'm working on a new, you can see I'm just tying the pieces on. I love this warp, shiny, beautiful purple. This is rayon chenille. And I'm working on a new mystical, magical scarf. I will put a link to those. These are really special and unique, made custom, which is part of the beauty of them. So I'm going to work on that one, and I'm just going to share a little bit on my thoughts of creativity is dangerous and how relevant and important I think that is to us right now. And this is what I mean. Let me start by saying what I mean when I say creativity is dangerous by telling you a story. And in this story, I am, gosh, it's at least 10 years ago, or maybe 9 years ago, because it's kind of, I've just divorced, or I'm in the process of divorcing. And I'm living where I live now in Western Mass. I'm certainly not the first divorced person in the history of time, but people started treating me differently and reacting and responding to me differently. Not everybody, but some people definitely did. In fact, there was one woman at the preschool, and we kept trying to have a play date, and she kept putting me off and putting me off. And I had another friend who was going through a divorce at the time, my only other friend who was having one at the time. Since then, I've had many friends have a divorce. But we talked about the fact that a lot of people feel like divorce is contagious. They're worried, right? So I really understood eventually that this woman didn't want to hang out with me because I was a divorced mom or a divorcing mom. And it wasn't just because she had some archaic judgment about divorce, which a lot of people do. It was also because she was afraid it would rub off on her. And here's the thing. Divorce doesn't rub off on people. You're not friends with somebody who's having a divorce and then you want to have one. But you know what does rub off on people? Your energy of aliveness, your creativity, right? The fact of creativity is it's what allows us to think about choices, to live outside of the box, to have new and fresh and interesting ideas. So one idea is I don't have to be married to this person anymore. And that can be a sad idea and a difficult idea, but it's still an idea. And it's not always an idea in the mind of everybody. So genuinely, I mean this quite genuinely, that is an act of creativity. So creativity is dangerous because it's a disruptor. It disrupts things, and it should disrupt things. And not to have any judgment, but it is different from activities that are maybe artistic or creative, even craft-like, that bring us like a lot of comfort and calm and soothe us. But we aren't necessarily in our creative brain when we're doing them. We're in kind of a different energy. We're still sort of engaging with artsy stuff, perhaps, but in a very different way. So what I'm talking about is really getting into your creative self and your creative process. And when you do that, it will start to disrupt things. And guess what? Have you noticed? Have you noticed how much we need to be disrupted, how yucky and stinky and horrible and awful the status quo is? And of course, I mean that on a national and global scale. But I also want to speak to that part of us in our hearts that maybe is stuck in a rut or stuck in the status quo or not sure what to do to change things. And our creativity, when we engage with it, opens up the space for making creative choices in our lives. So if all our creativity does, I'm sorry, I feel like the light is like super shiny on my glasses. I hope that's not annoying. But if all our creativity ever does is make something pretty, and believe me, I like pretty things, wearing a pretty thing, I'm really making a pretty thing. But if all it ever does is keep us in the same place, right? Creativity should never, ever, ever leave you where it found you, even if all you have is 5 minutes to do something. I've told this story before about my first novel when it was published. I've told this story many times. Hang on, I'm going to bend down here. I need to hook on my treadles. But when I had my first novel published, I had one kiddo, and he was a wee babe. In case you don't know me, I forgot to say this. In case people don't know me, Sam from thesamanthawild.com, famously mother of 6, and also nationally juried fiber artist, also author of a number of books. Oh boy, also Yale trained feminist theologian. Take that, karate kick. And a couple other things. Been teaching yoga forever, very, very long time. I'm a spiritual mentor, ordained minister, but blah, not really. That's not where it's at for me right now. I'll tell you about that some other time. If anybody is interested in that, I could certainly talk about that. Okay. Now, what the heck was I talking about, though? Oh, I was going to tell you the story about my first novel. Right. So I had one kiddo. He napped an hour in the morning. He napped an hour in the afternoon. And I wrote the novel I really wanted to read. My first novel is called This Little Mommy Stayed Home. But writing that puts me in the place, right? I'm sitting there, I'm writing in that hour. You don't require wide open spaces. People will say to me, oh my gosh, I need to set aside 3 months or whatever. Look, girl, some of us don't have 3 months. Some of us don't have, 3 hours. Some of us don't even have 3 minutes. But creativity, to engage with your creativity is not a retreat. You don't need a retreat center to be engaged in your creativity. You can do it in even the smallest amount of time. And when we truly engage in that creative self, it helps us by being an instigator of change and possibility. It opens up our minds and our hearts to the fact that we can be more, we are more, we can do more. People tell me all the time these stories of things like, just taking one class, one weaving class, one art class, one painting class, and something kind of cracks inside of them or shifts inside of them. And that begins this incredible shift everywhere in their life. And that's the sort of creativity that's dangerous, but dangerous in a good way if we think about the fact that how we're going may not be so great. How we're going culturally in this moment is not so great. It would be good to get dangerous about it, mix it up a little bit. And that's also true inside of our own lives when we're stuck inside of a rut. I have found that my real engagement with my real creativity, I don't even know where it will take me sometimes. It really, really can shift things, invites me into new directions. It can be very challenging. to be inside of the creativity doesn't always feel like I'm just in a beautiful, easy place. It's asked me to become a bigger person. It's asked me to face my shame. I don't know if anybody else is interested in shame, but I could do a whole sit down and weave and chat about shame. Oh my goodness, I really could. And about my experience really coming into allowing myself to go full into my weaving and the kind of shame that came up. Weird. Why would that be the case? But for each of us, that's what we want. Disrupt the status quo. Shake up the system of your own life. Creativity comes in there to woo, and then it settles. And I was talking about this today to somebody in terms of putting a warp on. And what's interesting to me is when you put on a warp, if it gets, tangled or the threads get crossed, we shake it. We shake it. We shake it loose. We don't get in there and claw at it or try to lay out each individual fiber. We shake it and shake it. And then the individual threads line themselves up. And I think that's what I'm talking about in terms of creativity. And that's what's contagious in terms of creativity. And you living your own creative life, being in your creativity, sharing about that, putting your art up, or talking to people about the things you're doing, or inviting them into that space, that will be contagious. And that's the kind of contagion we want. We don't want to be spreading those other things, but we definitely want to be spreading the power of our creativity. So I'm going to go and fix this warp because I have a few fibers that are crossed, speaking of crossed fibers. And I hope this was some interesting food for thought. I'd like you to tell me in the comments if you ever thought of your own creativity or creativity in general as dangerous or disruptive. And if you have any good stories, put those in the comments. I would love to hear it. I'm sure other people would like to hear that idea too. What it really means to be the positivity of being a disruptor and how important that is when we want to really, when we want to and need to change our lives, then we want something like creativity to come in. I mean, what else is like it? Nothing else is like it. Okay, well, I have to work on that. Thumbs up, please, and thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, so you know every time. Trying to do these Weave and Chats live Tuesday night. And I hope you have a really dangerously creative night and day and week, wherever you're at. Thanks so much for being here. Don't forget to check out thesamanthawild.com for the mystery scarves, other things about me. And I'm going to sign off. That's enough chit chat for now. Have a great one.